Hi there, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to have an honest and vulnerable conversation about living as an Orthodox Christian woman in a world that often pulls us in the opposite direction. So join me today as I do some homemaking, make a craft, bake, and so much more. Hi there, and welcome to or back to my channel. I am so happy you're here. Today is actually my daughter Juliana's names day. So for those of you who don't know, a names day is the feast day or the day we commemorate a certain saint. Juliana's saint is Saint Juliana the Merciful, and she was a saint who was alive in the 14th century. I think that is kind of neat how today is her name's day, and I'm also filming a video this week on the topic of femininity. So I hope everybody enjoys this video, and if you do, please be sure to subscribe and give a like, maybe share the video. And for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with me, my name is Lydia. I am an Orthodox Christian, a wife and a mother. I grew up in the Orthodox Church, and I just like sharing things about homemaking, motherhood, and Orthodox Christianity. So thank you for being here. As Christians, we're called to live in the world, but not of it. This can feel isolating and even overwhelming at times. This topic is close to my heart because it's something that I personally wrestle with. There are so many times when I've felt the temptation to conform to what society says is normal or acceptable, especially when I find myself wanting to please others instead of God. To be honest, it's something that I still struggle with, but I've learned that when I try to please the world, I end up further from Christ, of course. Also, I'd like to make it clear that I'm not talking about this because I have it all figured out or because I think I'm better than anybody else. In fact, far from it. I'm sharing this to encourage you as I encourage myself to keep walking this narrow path, even when it feels difficult or countercultural. A couple other things. So I want to make it very clear that if you have any doubts about anything or you need further spiritual guidance, please talk to your priest or spiritual father and ask them for help. Also, prayer is really important as well. And lastly, while the virtues I'm discussing today apply to both men and women, I'm primarily speaking to women because that's who my main audience is. It is no secret that we are called to live differently, to reflect Christ in our thoughts, actions, and choices. But let's be honest, it's hard. I've personally fallen into the temptation of trying to fit in or make others happy, even at the cost of my faith. Maybe it's not wanting to disappoint someone or fearing that I'll be judged or left out. Sometimes it feels easier to just go along with the crowd than to stand firm in what we know is true. But over time, I've realized that pleasing people instead of God leaves me feeling empty. I also reflect back on the many martyrs of the faith who died for Christ, and that is who we should exemplify and try to be like. I also thought that I would share some ways that we can live counterculturally and resist the pull to conform. To start, modesty is really important, and I'm not just talking about how we dress, but in the way we speak and carry ourselves. Modesty reflects humility and helps us to focus on our inner beauty, the beauty of a soul seeking Christ. Next up, we've got simplicity. Now, the world constantly encourages us to chase more and to have more money, more possessions, more recognition. But true happiness comes from simplicity and focusing on eternal things. Next up is sacrifice. The world says, put yourself first, but Christ calls us to serve others, to live generously, and to live with love and humility towards our neighbors. Next up is guarding our hearts and minds. What we consume really does matter. Whether it's what we watch, or the conversations we have, or the influences that we surround ourselves with, everything shapes our hearts. So choosing wisely helps us to stay rooted in our faith. Lately, I've been trying to do more spiritual reading, and this is one of the books that I have that I thought would be really nice to just read through. It has a reflection for each day of the year, so it's just little bits and sections that you can read each day. And I think that this is really good for busy moms like myself to just go through and read once a day. Another thing we can do is nurturing relationships. Now, the world often prioritizes independence, but really we're called to community, right? Whether it's through family or friends or parish life, loving others with selflessness reflects God's love. I've shared this a little bit before on my channel, but we are currently living in an area where we don't really have much of an Orthodox community. And so what I've been doing is I've been going to a postpartum support group for other moms and women in the area, and it has been so helpful. The moms who go to this are really sweet and kind, and we all share a lot of the same values and morals, and so it has been super helpful in making it so that I don't feel so isolated. So having these qualities aren't weaknesses, they're strengths that can set us apart from the world. They bring us closer to Christ and allow us to reflect upon His love to others. Right now, I'm actually working on a craft that I have been inspired to do by some recent trends on, I think it was Instagram maybe, or Facebook, and that's where you use Mod Podge to put adhesive down for different designs off of pretty printed napkins. And so I had a bunch of napkins left over from this tea party that I hosted with some friends a couple weeks ago, and I decided that the napkins were so pretty that I wanted to repurpose them. So I actually had to take a break from decorating my shell just because I had a lot of dishes to get caught up on, but I ended up doing my shell later that night, decorating it while watching some YouTube and just having some time to myself, and it was actually very relaxing. So if you're looking for a project that's not too intimidating and you don't mind just kind of cutting things out and also getting your fingers a little sticky or full of glue, then I would recommend this project for you. You also could use a brush so that your fingers wouldn't get all full of glue. I just didn't happen to have one, so I made do with just using my fingers to put the glue on, but definitely use a brush if you have one. Lately, I've been finding it to be a lot less stressful to kind of simplify breakfast for us all, and so I've been doing a lot of yogurt and berries with some granola and honey, and it never gets old for us. We always enjoy it and love having it. So this spread is from the loaf of bread that I made the other day, and I just cut it all up and put it in a Ziploc bag for storage. We've been eating it and snacking on it a long time now, and it is very good. It is a sourdough sandwich bread. I did use yeast in it just because it helps to kind of speed things along, but we really love it, and it will be a recipe that will be up on my blog soon. For us people on the old calendar, we have been enjoying about 2 weeks of a fast-free period, and so today I decided to make some animal cracker dip, is what I call it. Essentially, it's cream cheese, butter, vanilla, a little bit of brown sugar, powdered sugar. Also, I always try to keep fresh flowers at our icon corner. I am not perfect at always replacing them when they get old and start to die, but I really do try to stay on top of things. I also like to prep the flowers, or so that's what I call it. I trim the stems, of course, but then I also am sure to take off any of the leaves, which make the bouquet a lot more bulky and cover up the flowers. And I just think that doing this extra step of taking off the leaves helps it to be a little more manageable. It is no surprise that society celebrates values that are often the opposite of what we're called to as Orthodox Christians. But it's okay to be different. It's okay to say no to the pressures of wealth and status, physical perfection, independence at all costs, and constant self-promotion or getting famous. Instead, we're called to be humble and family-oriented, to have a deep root in our faith and community. Yes, it's hard, it's countercultural, but the peace and joy that come from living for Christ far outweigh anything the world can offer.
Lastly, just remember, if you're feeling out of place in the world, take heart. That's a good sign. It means you're striving to live a life that's set apart for Christ and pleasing to Him. And when we stumble, and we all will, let's remember that God's grace is always there to lift us back up again. There's repentance and forgiveness. How do you navigate the pressure to conform? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. What helps you to stay focused on Christ in a world that pulls us in the opposite direction? Let's encourage one another in the comments. And if you found this video helpful at all, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it, and even subscribe for more homemaking and faith-based content. And I will see you again next time.